Oh man, episode 8, X-Men 97. This is the first part of the 3-part finale. Tolerance is extinction, Chop. I kept wanting to say extinction is tolerance.
Selling is service, and service is selling.
Yeah. That lovely voice that you just heard, the dulcet tones, is the extraordinarily talented Shaw. How you doing today, Shaw?
Lady, I got 6 reasons why.
There was so many good quotables in this episode, and that's just one of them.
Yeah,
That
I had a couple
was-
other honorable mentions that almost happened. I had oh shoot, I just lost it. Of course. I had let's show these toasters why you don't screw with the Summers. Love that one.
I want to talk about that.
And Bastion said, because when your skin's not in the game, apathy is your answer. Bastion, man, he is a quote factory. That dude always delivers some really excellent dialogue, and Theo James killing it on the voice acting. He's so casual with it that it comes across so natural sounding. There are few voice actors I've heard recently that are doing a better job than Theo James right now. That is impressive because it's not even acting. He's just being like, it's so good. So good.
Yeah. And I know that you're not watching Bad Batch right now, Shaw. This is a slight tangent, but Jimmy Simpson, who was on Westworld, and he's been in a ton of things, but he plays, Google him, Shaw. I know if you see his face, you'll know who he is, but he plays Royce Hemlock on the Bad Batch season 3. And he did the exact same type of performance, like just menacing, and it's not over the top. He's not yelling. I don't think there's a single moment that he yells in the entire Bad Batch is now finished. So once you get to that, Shuff, I think you'll see a definite comparison there. He was also on It's Always Sunny.
I was going to say, he's one of the McPoyles. He's one of the McPoyle brothers.
Great actor, Jimmy Simpson, but he's doing a similar job. And I think Bastion is fantastic. This Bastion is... And I should have, I was kicking myself because I should have said it on the podcast so I would feel like I was right this week, Shaw. But Bastion, to me, is exactly what I want him to be and what I wanted them to do. They took this really convoluted origin story or the background in the comics and made it simplified. It makes sense. It's no extra... not, all right, he had to go off in another universe and go through a black hole and go through a dimensional belt. It's like, no, he was a robot from the future, and then he impregnated a human. Hey, that's Terminator, Shaw. That's kind of like something that we would have seen in a science fiction movie.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. There's nothing that I was like, oh, I wish they had done that from the comics. This Bastion in X-Men 97, I think, is now the superior version. I think this is the way that it should have been, and I'm loving all of the changes that they're making. Your thoughts on Bastion so far? We finally get him out in the open show.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely humanized him to a certain degree because they gave him, I mean, he literally was born. He was a child. He was born of the diner lady from the One Man's Worth episodes, right?
Which is amazing.
Which Bo DeMeo had definitely given us as homework, which is really cool. So that sort of, plays into that part. Interestingly enough, he has like a purple tinge, right, to his skin. And now I'm thinking the purple people eater thing is really just probably as a kid, because he was born in the 50s, right?
Right. That sounds right.
For that particular time frame.
Because he's in the 90s here, and he looks like he's in his, maybe 60s, because he kind of looks like he's in his 30s to me. Maybe late 30s, early 40s.
So but like that music would have been, something that he would have grabbed onto. Plus, like as a kid, he probably would have resonated with it because they're talking about purple skin or whatever. And he's got that. So I'm like, okay, that's the significance. Really, it's just he was brought up with it probably. That's what he was hearing on the radio. And he connected with it. But yeah, it was really great to see something so streamlined. Didn't take much explanation. So I really, really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed one of the other things that I felt that they really explained well and did quickly so that we know for sure there is no resetting Genosha. Genosha is they call it an absolute point.
Yes.
Which, believe it, what I really liked as well is they threw in Kamertage into it, and I don't know if that is something that they did because of the MCU, or if it's not really part of the MCU. Like, we don't really know for sure if this X-Men 97 fits into that, if it's part of a branch or its own tree. Bo DeMeo sort of indicated on Twitter that he was supposed to visualize it as its own tree, not a branch of the MCU multiverse tree. So whatever that means, but we get this Kamertage thing that Beast says, indicating that this is considered an absolute point in time. It is fixed. It cannot be changed. Cable went back way more times than we saw and was unsuccessful at stopping the attack from happening, saving his mother, Madeline Pryor. And that confirms it. Gambit is dead.
Yes, which we've talked about on previous episodes. I'm happy and I'm sad.
Yes,
that he
exactly.
is, because it means that his death matters.
Yes.
It means that his sacrifice matters, but it also means we're not going to get any more Gambit, Shaw. That's your favorite character.
Well, he could come back, because in the comics, it's not uncommon for Gambit to be one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So he could be revived by Apocalypse.
Ooh. Would you like that as a Gambit fan, Shaw? Would you like that?
I'd be down for it.
Okay.
I'd be down for it. But I also really appreciate that he went out with such a bang. Like, I mean, I don't think I got to say this last episode, but I love Marvel Legends. I used to collect them a lot. I was one of my favorite things to collect. Now I've since kind of moved away from it. Now I just do Lego, but I really wanted to get the Gambit X-Men 97 figure. I love Gambit. I have a bunch of Funko Pops of Gambit. He's my favorite and has been my favorite X-Men character for a very long time. This is not like a bandwagon thing. Vactor knows. I've been a fan of Gambit before it was cool to be a fan of Gambit. And I remember putting it in my Amazon cart that I was going to buy it, but I was like, nah, you know what? I think I'll hold off. And so I put it in save it for later, right? After the episode 5, where he gets killed and sacrifices himself, that action figure, impossible to get on Amazon. It was sold out.
Dang.
Yeah. I went on to Mercari. I was like, oh, I'll get it on Mercari. It should be fine. They had jacked up the prices of that action figure. It was like $50, $60, $100 for this figure that's normally like $15-$20 in the store. And I was just like, man, I should have gotten that figure sooner, because now they're like out of stock. And when it comes back, who knows?
I'm surprised you didn't pull the trigger. Actually,
I know, but yeah. So X-Men is a household name again, and I'm glad that everyone else is finally getting a taste of what I've always thought, which is he's awesome and one of the best X-Men. So
yeah. So speaking of Cable and the kind of fixed point of Genosha, number one, I'm surprised that Bright Eyes was not the Cable episode, and it wasn't from his point of view what that future was going to be. We still have 2 more episodes left, 2 more parts of the finale, so we might still get that future timeline with Cable. He's definitely not out of it. I'm surprised he wasn't inserted into the intro of the show with him being part of the lineup. But what I did think was interesting was him doing the backstory, or him giving you the actual, hey, here's what happened.
Yeah.
It's a flashback to him, but to us, this is all new information. This is the future where Bastion comes from, and where he took over. He made it a utopia,
right?
Which we thought it was going to be a dystopia, but he made it a utopia for humans built on the backs of mutants. And that has a whole level of slavery in America, things built on the backs of others. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff that is built into that, which is great. Like X-Men being an allegory for all these things. That's all cool. The tease that we get when you're seeing these X-Men, or these mutants, I should say, it was built on the backs of, you see what looks like Hope, Rachel Summers. You see what looks like Magneto's daughter, an older Polaris.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, number one, a lot of the cameos that we're getting in this are great. 90% of them end up being Morph. And in this one, we see Juggernaut. And every single time it happens. It happened with Quicksilver in the last one. It happened with Juggernaut. I'm like, oh, oh, and then oh yeah, I forgot. Yes,
Right.
it's Morph. Okay,
Right.
which kind of deflates my bubble. My balloon is like, because I'm like, if I'm getting Juggernaut, if I'm getting these guys and they're at their full power level, it's great. But man, there's so many good things that happened in this episode, Shaw. Because I wanted to jump ahead to the Prime Sentinels and them taking everybody out, but we'll get to that in a second. Yeah. So, what did you think about this? The not only the Cable future that he talks about
Right.
of the utopia, but also what did you think about the Cable Summers dynamic? What did you think about the father son reunion that we're getting in this one? Because previously he just was like, oh, you're not my mom, you're not her.
Right.
In this one it's like he's getting a full-on,
Yeah.
like they're butting heads, they're clashing. What do you think about
Yeah.
that?
Well, one tidbit of information that was really helpful to know that came out in this episode that I don't think we were given prior is that, you know, we've been wondering where Bishop is, right? Like he hasn't come back with
Yes, right.
Cable.
Mm-hmm.
But what we find out in this episode is that Bishop and Cable, when Bishop went into the time stream like that, they got separated right then and there. So this Cable grew up without even Bishop there to help him out. So he was left alone, stranded. No wonder he's, you know, grown up and become this person who is a hardened individual, you know, very mission focused and doesn't have like the heart or the softer side, and doesn't view his dad in a very nice light. Right.
Mm-hmm. And I've
and also,
always been a big Cable fan. Like this
oh yeah,
feels like Cable to me, and I'm loving it. I'm loving and I have a different perspective on Cable now than I did when I was growing up. Now the being a father
yeah,
versus being a son when I was younger. Now it's like the tables have turned, and I'm in Scott's shoes now instead of in Cable's shoes. And what would I feel like if my son came, you know, a grown up version of my son showed up and was just like, you weren't there, and I'm like, what? Like that wasn't my choice. I wanted to be there.
right.
So this is some great stuff, and we've talked about it on previous episodes. This is the best soap opera for guys. This and professional wrestling is like, this is like this. Now you know why women love soap opera so much. This drama is so juicy. Stop. I love it. I love the family dynamics,
Yep.
and everything that we're getting. All of those things are fantastic. And on top of that, Shaw, we're getting amazing action sequences. This
Yes.
show has some of the best. And you mentioned the Wolverine quote that he had, and on Twitter I saw the artist who storyboarded the sequence when Wolverine is in the air and he's flying and just cutting, slicing, and dicing. And he said that in the script it said Wolverine does a clawnado, and I was like, clawnado, what is that? So this is what he came up with, and it was like, oh, this is great. All of the stuff with the Wolverine, all this stuff with Nightcrawler, you got to see a first person perspective of the the Nightcrawler teleportation.
Oh, that was so cool.
We've never seen that before.
Yeah.
In any media. Like we've never seen that before.
It threw me off initially because I was like, what is happening?
Right.
But then I was
He's
like,
like
oh, we're
stretching.
inside it. We're inside it as he's doing
I
the
had to rewind it and watch it over
interdimensional
again.
portal between. I was like, oh my God, we just bamfed with him. That's so
Yes.
cool.
And there is actually a whole separate comics explanation, which I should do a short on that. But Nightcrawler's teleporting is different in this than it is in the comics. But I might save that for a short later, Shaw. But I loved it, man. That was like I said, the same high that I got of watching Nightcrawler in X-Men 2, the live action X2,
Yes.
and you're seeing him for the first time fighting. That's what I got here. It was like seeing him with the 3 swords, 2 in his hands and 1 on his tail, and just like you could, like he would, if he was a bad guy, like this would be like an unstoppable villain. Like if you tried to take him on, it's like, I'm so happy he's on our side, right? Like this is just so cool.
He's so graceful. As soon as he got like smacked against the wall and the swords fell down from like above the fireplace, I was like, oh no, because that's like a total like Chekhov's gun situation.
Yes,
like you don't show that without it being something. And we all know Nightcrawler has an
Yes.
affinity for swords, like
Mhm.
the swashbuckling
Yes,
saber style
yes,
swords, which is what those were.
yes.
And I was like, as soon as I saw them fall, I was like, oh, it's about to go down. As
Yeah.
soon as he picks those up, we're going to have a whole sequence. I just know it. And, we had speculated before this entire season, Wolverine really hasn't had that much to do. He's been sidelined big time, which was a welcome change because usually he's at the front and center of everything going on with the X-Men.
Right.
And so it was nice for him to take a back seat, but also it was great to have him have this moment where they're protecting Rogue and he's flying through the sky, like you're saying, slicing and dicing. And then he's doing an awesome team up with Nightcrawler. It was so great to watch. That
That's how
sequence was fantastic.
and that's how Wolverine used to be. He used to be used only on sporadically, like as a side member, and he just became so popular that they just had to keep on
Yeah.
upping the ante, and to the point where the live action movies became like from the standpoint of Wolverine. He was like the main character, and then we got Wolverine and the X-Men, like the animated series, and then we got there's a Wolverine and the X-Men comic book, which Jason Aaron wrote, which is fantastic. If you haven't read it, that run is amazing. But Wolverine, I like him. I like both, Shop. I like him as the main character, and I like him as a side character as well. I like both as long as he's utilized correctly, and he was here, Shop.
Yeah.
This was the right
Another
way to
team
use
that we
him.
saw a huge and awesome action sequence was Scott Summers. So we got Cyclops, we got Jean Grey, and we've got Cable together
Yeah.
on the Blackbird.
Yeah.
But the Blackbird gets shot out of the sky fairly quickly, and we find out it's the third Blackbird in as many months, and the Beast is not going to be happy about it.
That was great.
So I thought that was really funny. But then the unexpected happens because, like, I'm expecting we're going to have another situation where they're going to have to try and figure out how to land on the surface without getting hurt.
I thought he was going to use
Cyclops
his
is going to
blast
do another
again.
I-beam thing or whatever, right? No, they just went in the back and got into a Blackbird Porsche. And like
And
an
Cable's
epic
reaction.
like, Fast and the Furious sequence of it like flying through this car flying through the sky and landing and taking out the Sentinels and everything. And you've got Cable punching out the roof, and he's got the gun, and he's and oh my gosh, it was excellent.
Cyclops is mowing down the mountainside, making way for them while Jean is driving psychically or telekinetically. All of that was a fantastic sequence. And it just, again, Shoff, I'm sounding like a broken record. Yeah, I'm really wondering what season 2 is going to be like without Bo DeMeo, because I just feel like his touch is all over this. I just don't know. His fingerprints seem to be.
Well, that honestly, to me, that's a really interesting experiment, right? To really understand, because if we getting the second season and him not being a part of it, if that special sauce that is making this season so great is in fact his involvement, or it's just all the pieces lining up. Yeah. So my hope is that he is part of a great team that helped bring it together, and that just even though he's not necessarily part of it, that great team still will be, and and the conglomerate, the collective hive of consciousness can bring the same amount of quality to the second season. Because otherwise, I'm like, man, if this guy is the secret sauce and he's the reason why, get him back. Whatever he did, just get him back. All right, this is the most amazing time to be an X-Men fan right now. It's incredible.
And it's so fun after the episodes air to go on social media. That I immediately start stalking Bo DeMeo's Twitter account to see what his replies are to people. And that's great to see him have, to have access to that source of this material. And Threads is another one. I'm just seeing so much positive energy behind X-Men, like the hashtag X-Men 97. Everybody is just having a great time with this. I'm seeing very little negativity. I did see a comment on our community tab on YouTube where I posted an image of Bo DeMeo, and somebody was like, well, he's not the reason it's good. I'm like, huh? Well, what's the reason it's good? Anyways, so I'm really curious, like you said, is he the main reason for the special sauce, or is season 2 going to be a letdown? Oh man, that's going to be disappointing if we get such a great first season and then the second season is a letdown. But it is a very good time to be an X fan right now, Shaw. This
Oh
is
yeah.
cooking.
Let's talk cameos.
Ooh-wee.
So when Bastion is in his lair, right, and he's talking to the various people on the screens, we get a couple of Marvel villains on the screens, and I don't know about you, but when I saw Doctor Doom, I squealed. That was exciting.
A number of cameos made me stand at attention, Shaw, and that was one. And you got to hear him speak.
Yeah, he had
and
that variant accent going for him.
yes,
It was nice.
and if this is in the MCU, Shaw, if we are in, like you said earlier, there's kind of some murky waters, and I even saw Disney Plus put it in an MCU like tab or something.
Right.
So I'm still not sure exactly. But if this is in the MCU, this is Doctor Doom in the MCU, Shaw. This is our first look at Doctor Doom. But I'm really loving that they're staying in that continuity of the original show, because there was a Fantastic Four show, there was an Iron Man show, there was a Hulk show, and on top of the original X-Men series, there was also a I don't know if we saw Baron Zemo as one of the other villains.
Yep.
I don't know if he appeared in the Iron Man show. I'd have to look that up, but that was another one. The other one, Shoff, that made me stand at attention, and I was sitting down as I was watching it, and before I knew it, Shoff, I was up. I was standing up. I did not realize my body just activated. It was Sentinel Prime mode came over me, and I just stood up when Spider-Man flipped onto the screen.
Yes.
And I let out a yelp as well, because I was not expecting that at all. There had been kind of rumblings of, oh, X-Men 97 is so popular, why don't they bring back that Spider-Man? Why don't they have a Spider-Man 98 or whatever? And even the voice actor that played Spider-Man was on Twitter talking today about
Christopher Daniel Barnes.
I don't know if there is going to be one. Hey, let's get a campaign going. They haven't talked to me about it, but if he would have he didn't have a speaking role in this one, but somebody actually did like a fan edit, and I sent that to you on Twitter, and it had his voice, and it was like, oh, this fits perfectly. This syncs up, puts us right back. Puts us right back in on Saturday morning show off. We're eating cereal.
Those two shows, X-Men and Spider-Man, that was it, man. That's all I needed. All I needed. I love that they're both on Disney Plus. It's fantastic. Yes. We also get Omega Red. Because Magneto has gone to the pole and has basically like disrupted all of the magnetic activity on the planet, which has basically acted as sort of like an electromagnetic pulse, turning off,
which that was fantastic.
Yeah, turning off all Prime Sentinels. We're having power outages everywhere. But so that's when we see Spider-Man, like you said. We see Omega Red being turned on because the facility he's being held at is now turned off. So he's like let loose. So his tentacles were coming out of his arms and everything.
And I hope that comes back. I hope that is not something that is thrown away. I hope there's a major plot point with Omega Red in the future.
Yeah, because then you're going to get more Wolverine for sure. And then we get Silver Samurai as well.
Oh, yes.
Which is another Wolverine
classic
villain as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think, were there any others?
I think those were the main ones.
I think those were the main ones. Yeah.
They had some shadowy figures, but those weren't identified as anyone specific.
Yeah, exactly. We do get to see the return of Dr. Cooper. We find out that she was part of Bastion's team, but she had a change of heart. She freed Magneto. Magneto was right, is the true quote of the episode, but I didn't want to take that one. That was too easy.
And I said this before, she was the original Jean Grey voice actress.
Right.
And I'm loving that she has a great role. She has a juicy part to sink her teeth into on this one.
All this time, I still have been like, okay, when are you going to change, Mystique? Like, you're Mystique, right?
I was thinking that too.
When are you going to show your blue skin? I mean, Nightcrawler even referenced Mystique in this episode. And I was like, oh, come on, Dr. Cooper, let's have it. But I'm convinced now. She's just Dr. Cooper. There's no mystique. I've never seen Magneto go so hard. That was insane. But also, you got to mention your friend. I know that you've had a tough time. You want to get him on the podcast.
Oh yes, Curtis.
But
yes.
man, he made me laugh big time. You gotta
yes.
You gotta share what he said, man. You gotta share what he said.
Well, Curtis is one of the guys that I go to whenever the episode is over. He's one of the first people that I text along with Shoff. Emmy, who was on the podcast previously talking about the MCU, she was the MCU expert that I had on. And these are like the people that I go to. So Curtis specifically, I'm trying to think of which one, because he said a lot of things to me.
It was about Magneto. It was about Bastion.
Was it about his shorts?
Imprisoning Magneto, but forcing him to basically be in these like black like undies.
Yes. Let's see. I'm going through my text messages with him real quick. We were talking about the VHS tapes from Pizza Hut. We were talking about a bunch of things. Yeah, what did he say specifically about Magneto's undies?
It was so funny.
Yeah,
I can probably find it pretty quick.
Oh, here. Yeah. So he said, you need to ask your new best friend, who he's talking about, Bo DeMeo, why he put Eric in them little panties. Because I'm really trying to figure out what Bastion's plan was with him besides perving. He shaved that man and stripped him on some bondage. And he said, like, sir, which part of the diabolical plot is this exactly? You was just horny. And that is 100%. And that's why I was asking on the last episode, why was he shaving him?
Yeah, totally.
And
why did I just like him? I like him clean.
In this episode, we see that he's shirtless and he's strung up on the cross. And a lot of people were commenting on that specific, the Magneto on the cross or the X and shirtless. And they were like, one guy I saw was like, hey, Bo, are you gay? And he was like, yes, I'm super gay.
Very
gay. That made me laugh. A lot of people were just posting screenshots of that, and they're like, man, this show is something else. But I wonder if that is the end. Like, are we ever going to get the reason why he shaved him and the reason why is just what was Bastion's goal in that whole thing? It just was kind of weird to me. But seeing Magneto go full Magneto was fantastic. That was amazing. He's an Omega level mutant. I love seeing the powers level of somebody who could turn the Earth into an EMP and set off this electromagnetic pulse, and just shows you the power of magnetism. Like, there's certain characters that, if you think about it, okay, if the Flash was really the Flash and he can move faster than you can think, nobody could beat him. Like, there's no one that, if he can move faster than you could process the thought of, I'm going to take action against him, then the Flash is going to win every time. If you have a straight up battle, you'd have to surprise him. But Magneto's another one of those guys where, if you think about their powers, what they could do, like the escalation of, take it to the nth degree.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to think about. And that's why I love doing these shorts on our YouTube channel where I talk about people's powers. That's something that always interests me about superheroes, and that's what got me into superheroes back in the day. But that scene where he's taking everybody out, not only was it a fantastic scene, they're cutting back and forth, and Bo DeMeo talked about this on Twitter, of he had kind of a rule of threes of, and that was something that George Lucas did on Star Wars too, where it was like you're cutting between 3 action scenes, and at the end they all come to a head and they all have a crescendo. But they were doing that during the Magneto scene. And something that I was thinking about, those Prime Sentinels are humans, right? They were human beings that either they volunteered or they were told something, they were lied to, and they dipped them in the green stuff shop and they turned them into Prime Sentinels. So all of those people are murdered? Is that the way that you understood it? When Magneto set off the EMP to stop the Sentinels, is he murdering all of those human beings?
That's my guess is, I mean, I would hope no. My hope is that it just basically deactivated the nanotech that was in their bodies. that was forcing them to sort of, take over their functions, their, brain and cognitive functions. And what would be left would just be the human side, is my guess. But I mean, some of them were flying around, right? Like,
Yes.
so
Well,
then they would
and
have
they had
just
like
plummeted
rockets
to
in
the
their
earth,
feet.
right? So,
Well, yeah,
like,
that's another one.
so they
But I
probably
was
did.
also well, I was also thinking about there was one that got their head cut off and then it like reattached.
Oh,
So
that's right.
I'm also thinking like maybe they're just not human anymore.
Yeah,
and
maybe they're too far gone at this point.
yeah, there's no way to bring them back. And that also kind of gets into, man, Bastion is messed up because he did that on his mom. He turned his mom into a prime
Yeah.
sentinel. And just the, what's going through Bastion's mind. There's so many things that I'm thinking about, but if we are to take it at that, where Magneto is now a mass murderer, he's also kind of set the I think Beast might have said it, or somebody said that he started the war now, and it's. Or am I thinking of another thing? Like I've got so many X storylines in my head right now.
So Magneto.
Did he say there was
Wolverine
a war
says,
coming?
"I can't believe Magneto did it," and Morphe's like, "You mean saved our butts?" And he's like, "No, started a war."
Yes. Okay, that's what it was. So not only did it seems like he murdered a bunch of humans, but also in this human mutant war kind of escalated it. And so now, is this going to lead to Avengers versus X-Men? Is this going to lead to, like, there's so many possibilities that this could go into, and we know we're getting at least 2 more seasons of this. That's one way that my brain is going. Another way is, now Bo DeMeo gave us some homework, Shoff, of the Fatal Attraction storyline from the comics. That's the one where Magneto pulls the metal off of Wolverine's bones, and Xavier has to forces Magneto to like go into a coma. He's like just the shock and the rage of Xavier having to go at his friend and like, I need to take you out. Like he didn't want to kill him, but it's like, I want to make him a vegetable. Like that. What is that going to be for him to tell us, hey, this is your homework to read this?
Yeah.
Are we going to see that show off? Like that is in my mind right now. Like there's so many things firing off. Like, oh man, there's so many ways that they could go with this. I'm curious.
And then of course we get the return of Professor X at the
yes
the tail end of the episode, right before they close to credits. And at first I was like, why is he crash landing? But then it dawned on me just a moment ago. I was like, oh, because of the EMP. He probably entered the atmosphere and then all of his like stuff stopped working. And so he just like crashed right in front of the burned down mansion. And it's funny because Wolverine's like, I wish we had the professor here right now. And he's like, I'm coming. Get out of the way. I'm about to crash land. And then he's like, to me, my X-Men. I love
that image of him doing that. I was like, that's a perfect ending to this.
And you saw the other like part. X-Men heads sort of like popping up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Storm is still in her kind of like classic 70s costume. The one that the Claremont suit that we saw in the video game, the X-Men arcade
I'm
game.
sure that'll just be her standard going forward at this point. I think the Mohawk is gone.
Yeah, that's gone. I think the Mohawk's done. Man, Shoff, there's so much that I love about this show. It's my favorite thing that I'm watching right now. I'm going to be sad when it's over in 2 weeks.
That's going to be so terrible. So terrible for us to be without new episodes. But I mean, the second season, I think there's three seasons planned at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully,
I wonder if they're going to be called X-Men 97 season 2, or will they be called X-Men 98, X-Men 99? I wonder. That's
a good question.
Marketing and all kind of stuff in the background, but I wonder what they're going to do. But man, Shoff, I'm having a blast with this show. Did you have any other notes that we did not get to?
No. I think we covered it. It all. It was truly an exceptional episode, and I don't know where they even go from here, because if Magneto was able to sort of like take down the entire Prime Sentinel program, Bastion's doesn't have much left beyond himself, right?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that too. What is the Bastion in boss battle? Like, if this was an arcade game, what is Bastion's, he's obviously going to be a threat. So he's got to be like overpowered and the whole team has to come together to put him down. How are they going to stop him at this
Right.
point? Because they even had a hard time, and I alluded to this earlier with Morph turning into Juggernaut. The Prime Sentinel just kind of picked him up and tossed him like he was nothing. And that's just a regular Prime Sentinel. That wasn't even Nimrod. That wasn't Master Mold. That wasn't like one of the big guys. So if every Prime Sentinel was like that, I can only imagine what Bastion is like. Like his power must be so much greater. And like I said, this is not exactly like the comics, so we can't look to the comics to say, oh, well, Bastion is like this in the comics. They've already established that they've changed. And it feels like he's just Nimrod in a human body. That's what it feels like to me. So I'm wondering, Magneto's there. Does he become the villain now of the story? Let's say Magneto takes out Bastion, and then now the X-Men have to take out Magneto. And that was another thing. I forgot to mention this earlier. Shoff, what do you think? This is a good question. Him being the leader of the team at the beginning of the season, obviously Xavier's back now, so he's not going to be the leader of the X-Men anymore. Where does Magneto go? Does he go back to the Hellfire Club? Does he become a straight-on villain now? Or do you think he's still going to be like an anti-hero? What do you think in your mind?
Well, I mean, one of the pieces of homework that we got was Magneto. I think it was Sanctuary episodes where the asteroid M, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I just watched last night.
Maybe that's part of it. Maybe the return of him being sort of like outside of Earth's jurisdiction in that regard.
Because why would Bo DeMeo give that as an episode to watch?
Yeah, doesn't seem like there's much connection yet to that.
I think something's got to come back. Yeah, from that. Mm-hmm.
And then there was so much in that episode related to Fabian Cortez. So
yes,
I'm wondering how that factors into things, if he's got something to do. I don't know, but I've learned that this show is going to continue to surprise me. So I'm just along for the ride. I don't want to speculate too much because it's always been just one surprise after another that's been exceptional. So,
and I'm so glad that this is weekly and this was not a binge thing where somebody just watched the whole season at midnight and spoiled it for us. We're getting this week by week. We're getting it like we're savoring it, Sean. This is not a buffet where we're just stuffing our face with X-Men.
No.
This is cooking each week. So I am loving it. I'm loving talking to you, Shaw. Hopefully we'll have our friend Tim back next week. We'll talk the Tolerances Extinction Part 2 here on This Comic Cooks.